The Hound becomes a lumberjack, Marjorie passes notes in class, and Arya really should have known better. Tonight we're discussing Game of Thrones episode 607, The Broken Man, on What's on the Box! Hi, I'm James.
I'm James.
I'm Chelsea.
And this is What's on the Box, where we discuss the latest episode of your favorite TV show.
This episode, we got a very rare cold opening to reveal that the Hound is back. Or maybe Sandor's back.
That's right, the Hound is dead. Sandor Clegane lives.
Did either of you guys realize right away that when those people walked by carrying logs, that Sandor was gonna be behind them carrying one by himself?
I figured as much.
It was great though.
With the title of The Broken Man, we kind of figured out that this would see the return of the Hound, simply because his return coincides with a speech involving that name in the books.
There were a few nods to book readers in this episode, and the title of the episode was one, but this was kind of another worst-kept secret. In addition to Jon Snow coming back, the return of Sandor was pretty much known by people who paid attention to the series. He doesn't die on screen, and even though we got Stannis who doesn't die on screen and was confirmed dead by Brienne, Sandor's built of stronger stuff.
And also, Ian McShane blew it in an interview.
Well, yeah.
But really, Ian McShane can do whatever he wants in the real world, because as long as he keeps acting like he does, I'll be fine with it.
He's just instantly charismatic. He draws you in right away with his bright eyes and his fun kind of demeanor. He just carries those scenes with such gravitas.
It had a Christian summer camp vibe, and I immediately trusted him.
It was also one of the most beautiful locations we've seen in quite some time on this show.
It was kind of jarring to see so much nature, especially in these later seasons. We've been on sets and inside, and even when we're outside, it's all kind of decimated. And then they're in this pristine valley, and it's so beautiful.
It kind of reminded me of Lost, just like the big rolling hills, and they're building this wooden structure, all primitive-like.
It was very pastoral, it was very egalitarian. Everybody there is having fun, they're laughing and like helping each other, and they're eating well, and it's something that we haven't seen in this world for a long time. It's a different kind of side of things.
And that side came to an end very quickly, because by the end of the episode, they're all slaughtered, and Ian McShane is hanging there, and Sandor Clegane grabs that axe and looks like he's off for some vengeance.
We don't know how that's gonna play out, obviously, but I think we can all agree we're a little concerned about this possible revenge plot, because I don't think that makes sense character-wise. I think Sandor's grown. I don't think he's the Hound anymore, but we'll see where it ends up.
I think Sandor's just acting instinctively. He's behaving the only way that he knows, the only way he's ever lived his life. Since being a child and growing up with the Mountain, he's always had to resort to violence, especially as Joffrey's attack dog. So I think that when he sees all these innocent people killed, people he had grown close to, his first instinct is to grab that axe and go kill some people. But I think we might see a change in him when the moment comes down to it.
How do you guys feel about this storyline potentially leading to Clegane Bowl?
I still think it's possible.
It's possible. It does lower my hype a little bit. I know nothing is worse than the hype slayer, but it just seems like he's going to be on a specific mission, and with Cersei's trial coming up sooner rather than later, it might be complicated to get him in the position to go up against the Mountain.
Yeah, I'm worried that it's gonna happen too fast and it'll feel really forced.
The only kind of logic path that I could think of is kind of convoluted, where he was with this group of religious people, he was with a Septon, and then he's going to seek revenge on people who seem to be affiliated with the Lord of Light. So the small folk could see him as this champion of the Seven. Word could get back to the High Sparrow, and maybe that's the way that he becomes this kind of champion of the faith. But like you said, it seems really rushed.
Yeah, that seems like Ellen seeing a kid on YouTube and being like, oh, hey, you're so big and popular, we really need to have you on our show.
Yeah, it's a lot of pipe to lay to get to Clegane Bowl. I still think they're gonna do it.
I hope they do it still. One idea I have had is that Loras might offer to be the champion of the faith as a way to repent for his sins and go up against the Mountain, and then somehow Sandor could come in and save him, which would echo the turning of the hand when the Mountain almost killed Loras and Sandor stepped in.
It would parallel events that happened all the way back in the first season, which I think would be really cool.
One of my favorite things about the scenes with Sandor and Septon Ray was the juxtaposition between Septon Ray and the High Septon, and how the former uses the faith as a way of kind of really reaching people in the ways that the High Septon preaches but doesn't really practice. He's very of the people, he has a very casual, colloquial way of speaking to them, he doesn't disparage other faiths, he doesn't claim to have all of the answers, he just wants people to be good to each other. He believes that people can change, he believes that they can be forgiven for their past sins, he believes that people can be better, and that's something that the High Septon claims but doesn't really seem to put into practice. He has a very strict strict, narrow view of how the world should be, and if you don't fit into that view, you should be destroyed.
Yeah, and I think for Sept and Ray, all that someone has to do to change is to want to change, whereas with the High Sparrow, they have to go through some humiliating process on his terms.
It's been pointed out too that the 7 is a pretty easy parallel with the Catholic Church. Maybe this is a little heavy-handed, but I think the High Septon reminds me of a Pope-type figure. He's the church as the seat of power. He's the Word of God. But then you have Brother Ray, who is almost Christ-like. He's with the people, and he's preaching tolerance.
And they're building a wooden structure. He's a carpenter.
And he is a carpenter. There you go.
You can see in the scene where he's giving his little speech about how he used to be a killer and how he's changed and reformed, how easy he relates to the people and how he's one of them, versus the High Septon, who doesn't really own who he used to be in the same way. Really has only revealed it the one time to Marjorie, and he's very distant from the people now. He's sequestered in this little stone sept that we keep coming back to, where it's just him and somebody else and maybe some guards, but he's no longer out on the streets. And I think that the power has really gone to his head.
Yeah, and the High Septon's all about ritual in a way to cleanse your past self, which is again a very Catholic thing.
But we do see that Marjorie is not actually under a spell. We didn't think she was, although in this episode, I had a moment of doubt just because she's so good at acting like it.
In the scene that she has with Elena after the High Sparrow has made that threat against her grandmother, we really see Marjorie tip her hand to show that she is not, in fact, one with the faith the same way that Tommen is. She's playing the long game.
And I do think that the High Sparrow is buying into it. I think that he does believe Marjorie is sincere just because he's so arrogant that he probably thinks he's successfully turned her. And I think that she plays into that because, like, when he sits down on that bench, and before we know that he likes people to sit with him, he beckoned Tommen to sit with him, and that was kind of gaining some control over Tommen. Marjorie just does it. She doesn't need to have that cue. She just does it because she knows that that's what he wants, and that's what'll make him believe her more.
In the last couple of weeks, we've talked about the importance of swords to families in Westeros, and we've talked about the importance of sigils, especially last week when the crown sigils changed over from the stag and lion to the crown 7-pointed star. This week, I think we need to talk about the importance of families' words. From season 1, we've known winter is coming as the Stark words. We've known hear me roar as the Lannister words. Each of the major houses in Westeros has a specific house motto that corresponds to kind of their character. For the Tyrells, they don't have a boast or a threat. Their words are growing strong. Earlier in the series, Olenna makes a joke about how they're kind of whatever words, but I think here Marjorie is really embodying that motto to its fullest extent. She is playing the long game. She's planting seeds and letting them grow over the course of time so that she can really reap what she sows to her benefit later on. That rose note that she passes to Olenna is the perfect example of that, I think. It's the sigil and the words and everything all kind of rolled into one that says, I am of the Tyrell house still. I am not brainwashed in the same way that Tommen is.
And we find out that she's not copulating with Tommen to give him an heir. And why do you think that is? Maybe she just doesn't want to have a son with Tommen? Do you think his weakness has made him unappealing to her? Do you think she's going to plot to get rid of Tommen and become just the queen?
I think that his weakness has made him unattractive to her. She can't use that anymore over him. Since we first met Marjorie, she's tried to use her sexuality as a tool, and she knows how to play that.
Do you think that in a way her fake adherence to the faith kind of has her hands tied behind her back because now she cannot be a sexual being at all?
No, because a woman doesn't need to have desire.
Oh.
High Sparrow just cementing himself as a villain with that.
Again, such a Catholic thing. So we learn that Olenna is going back to Highgarden, and she has a very interesting conversation with Cersei where she pretty much just tells Cersei that she's lost, and she's not wrong.
I think in some way she still thinks that she's invincible, whereas Olenna recognizes the danger she's in and is hightailing it back to Highgarden.
Cersei says something to the effect to Olenna that she loves her granddaughter, she loves her children, that's the only truth I know, which is a line from the Reigns of Castamere. So maybe there is something nefarious bubbling underneath there.
Yeah, I don't think Cersei has ever stopped plotting, and I think that Olenna is smart enough to recognize that.
Olenna knows too that Cersei put the faith and power to bring down House Tyrell. She created this position out of her contempt for House Tyrell, and now she needs House Tyrell to get her out of this mess.
I've seen a few people say that they think Cersei's donezo pretty soon. Tommen does have to die before Cersei dies.
It's prophesized, yeah.
But I'm curious the manner in which Tommen would be killed. Like, things seem to be looking pretty good for Tommen.
All I know is that there's a lot of political maneuvering in King's Landing right now, and Tommen is the only one who is definitely simply a pawn and not a player.
What if Marjorie decides to start sleeping with Tommen again so that she's pregnant, she has more of a grasp on the throne, and she kills Tommen? That's what I would do if I was Marjorie.
Oh!
I actually kind of think that's gonna happen now. I think Marjorie might kill Tommen.
Yeah, that's a great, I kind of really like that theory.
And it'd be cool too, because I think most people like Marjorie, and then they would have to deal with the fact that she killed this innocent young kid.
People would still like Marjorie.
I'd still like
Everyone still likes Marjorie. By the way, I love Marjorie's wardrobe change. Super high-necked dress.
Oh!
I know. I love being in the Riverlands. I missed it.
I missed it, but the Riverlands is a sad place post-war.
Very sad. But probably the saddest
It
place
is.
in Westeros.
I think it got hit the worst by the war because it's the middle of
Yeah,
Westeros.
most of the war took place there. That whole sequence to me with Jaime and the Blackfish and the siege at River Run was all a big reminder of the Red Wedding. There are so many touchstones that bring back the early days of the War of the Five Kings and then the end of it with the Red Wedding. First, we have Jaime coming up to the phrase and saying, "You let 8,000 men sneak up on you," which is exactly what happened to Jaime in the Whispering Wood when Robb captured him. We have a lot of crossbows. There are a lot of crossbows being pointed downward, which is a big visual cue that calls back to the Red Wedding.
There's an amazing parallel here where the Freys have Edmure, they have a knife to Edmure's throat, and the Blackfish says, fine, do it. It's exactly like when Catelyn had a knife up to Walder Frey's wife's throat during the Red Wedding, and Walder said, fine, I'll get another one.
But he's fighting for a cause, and I think that's what really endears the audience to the Blackfish. Even though he's willing to sacrifice Edmure, he sees the bigger picture, and the war isn't over as long as he stands. And I think that for a lot of audience members who are on the side of the Starks and the Tullys, to see that and see that he's not willing to give up the fight is something that you're going to root for the Blackfish forever. I loved that scene with him and Jaime on the bridge. Thought it was beautifully blocked, where the Blackfish comes out, crosses the drawbridge, walks behind Jaime, turns his back to him, doesn't care, and then walks back and is like, yeah, whatever, I don't think too much of you. Game of Thrones is at its best when it's two great actors being great actors, and this was a perfect example of that.
This was also a scene that I think really stood out in terms of costuming and design. The Tully armor is all scales, black leather scales. We get to see Jaime and Lannister armor, which is different. It's a little change of pace. And I love that the Lannister armor is really reminiscent of samurai armor, because throughout the whole series, the Lannisters have had a very Eastern kind of Japanese look to their fashion. Cersei wears a lot of kimono dresses. And then you have the Freys, who look like Monty Python peasants.
Those dumbass hats.
And then there was a guy who had an even dumber hat, and I don't know if that was a reward or a punishment. Could have been either.
The other thing that I really love about the samurai kind of aspects of the Lannister armor is that we have this idea of samurai culture as being very rooted in honor, and that kind of visual cue is something that I think a lot of people will think of right away, and the Lannisters don't have any. Jaime is known as the man without honor. Tywin would go back on any oath at any time if it suited his needs, from the Rains of Castamere through the sack of King's Landing. It's a really cool thing to me that there's this juxtaposition between the visual styling of their armor and their actual character.
And honor's such a big part of Jaime's arc specifically.
We also got a really good look at the River Run Castle, which was nice to see. Just its positioning on that river, what makes it so defensible. And we got to see another new castle in Bear Island.
I want to live at Bear Island. It's my favorite castle.
It's just waterfalls and wilderness and badass little girls in control. Obviously, Lyanna Mormont, huge fan favorite. She has been in the books. She was referenced last season by Stannis, and now she's here, and they got the perfect actress for her. That role could just be so funny and so dumb if it was played for laughs, but it wasn't. I think there's just a quick moment of humor when they first sit down with her, but she quickly erases any notion that she's gonna be easy to bargain with or there just for laughs. She's the toughest person they've run into, tougher than the wildlings they had to convince.
It's such an interesting picture to have the heads of these great houses in one room, but it's a woman, a bastard, and a little girl. And I think that really shows how the war has just completely decimated these major houses.
And an up-jump smuggler.
Yeah, and it's the up-jump smuggler who brings them all together.
Well, as Soundproof Liz pointed out in our live stream episode Sunday night, Davos has experience talking to little girls and relating to them.
He's very parental. He has a very fatherly energy about him. He knows how to relate to her. He knows the point at which to connect with Lyanna Mormont in a way that Sansa and Jon don't. Sansa thinks she can connect with her because she's a woman and because they have that in common, and that doesn't work. And Lyanna is not having it.
Jon thinks that he can connect with her because he served under her uncle kill the Lord Commander, Jorah Mormont.
And that falls flat too, because he's somebody who's been absent from Bear Island for so long.
And really quick, Lyanna Mormont is Jorah's cousin, just to clear that up.
It's Davos who steps up and says, I know how you feel. I too am in a position that I didn't expect to be in. That's such an amazing point to make, such a great way to connect with her and get her to come over to the Stark side.
I also like that she had Maester Gary from Veep whispering in her ear about the houses.
Yeah, and I think too that Davos, out of the three of them, is the only one who really takes her seriously and treats her as an equal. I think Jon and Sansa both kind of come in with the expectation that they're gonna get her help.
And it's the arrogance of expecting a positive outcome that really gets Sansa into trouble when they go and meet with the Glovers.
Yeah, they do not win the Glovers over to their side. And honestly, after Robert has his say, I kind of get it. He makes some good points. All his family went with Robb, and Robb kind of screwed it up for them and got them all killed.
For Robert to lose his brother Galbert in the Red Wedding, I don't know if I would side with them either. And even though Sansa tries to invoke the oaths that the Glovers swore to the Starks before, it's a different world now.
And I think it's easy to look at Robert Glover and see him as kind of a bad guy and think that he's being whiny because he's not a main character. But when you think about the position he's in, what reason does he have really for helping the Starks besides just putting a Stark back in Winterfell?
For a house like the Glovers, rule under the Starks and rule under the Boltons probably won't be that different because they're of a size where they can kind of defend themselves if they have to. They have a big castle, so they're not under immediate threat like some of the smaller houses that we see have joined Jon's cause, like the Hornwoods. But because the Glovers turned them down, Sansa's forced to take drastic action.
Yeah, so we're assuming she's writing a letter to Littlefinger to get the Knights of the Vale on her side.
But what is she promising Littlefinger in that letter?
I wonder if Sansa's promising herself to Littlefinger. Because think about it. If the Starks defeat the Boltons, Ramsay's gone, Sansa's not married anymore. Sansa can marry Littlefinger. Littlefinger's happy, and then she can take care of him later if she needs to.
I wouldn't be surprised if that was the deal she struck. I think that we're seeing that she's learning what her weapons are, and like Marjorie, I think she's learning that her womanhood is something that she can use to her advantage.
I think she tried to lean on the Stark name in this episode because previously at the Wall, she said that she has the Stark name, that should be good enough, but she learned that the Glovers and at the Mormonts that it's not.
No Manderleys yet, I still believe.
They name dropped the Manderleys.
They keep coming up.
We'll get the Manderleys, and we'll get that speech, even though we didn't get the Broken Man speech that I promised you we would get. I'm sorry. We are just letting you guys down with our predictions and hype. We're gonna get the North Remember speech with the Manderleys. We're maybe gonna get Clegane Bowl. I think we're gonna get Lady Stoneheart.
Are we going there?
Let's go
Let's
there.
go there.
Let's go there.
If you don't want to know about Lady Stoneheart, we'll be nice and put up a little annotation so you can click to the part after we're done talking about Lady Stoneheart.
So just click here if you don't know what Lady Stoneheart is and you don't want to know. Hey guys, still here? Lady Stoneheart is definitely happening.
For sure.
It's totally happening.
1,000,000%.
I know we've been teased before. Lena Headey posted an Instagram picture with a heart made of stones, and they've had titles like Misa and Mother's Mercy, but this is finally gonna happen.
Brother Ray says,
Never too late to come back.
then who should ride up but the Brotherhood Without Banners led by Lem Lemoncloak.
Lem Lemoncloak, who was not in season 3 with the Brotherhood Without Banners, but is a book character and does have some significance, especially with the RLJ theory that will get revealed by the end of the season as well.
Absolutely. I don't think we're going to get super into who Lem is in the show in the same way, but I think the fact that he is in the show and the actor who played him confirmed that he did play Lem, that is significant. That's a nod to book readers that the men who ride up are with the Brotherhood Without Banners. The show clues in that are the fact that they invoke the Lord of Light.
The night is dark and full of terrors.
And we've seen that Brotherhood is now following the Lord of Light, thanks to Thoros and Beric. But when the little happy colony is slaughtered, the Brotherhood is no longer the kind of fun band of Robin Hood rebels that they were in season 3. They are changed, and they are out for blood. And that is a big indication that Lady Stoneheart is with them.
And an even bigger clue is the fact that Brother Ray was hanged at the end of the episode, and Lady Stoneheart really likes to hang people.
She loves hanging.
I don't know if we'll ever find this out, because I don't know if we need to, but Brother Ray possibly was involved with the Freys or the Lannisters. We don't know who he was fighting for.
We know that he was a killer.
For Lady Stoneheart, that's all it really takes.
Also, in the description for episode 10, it says Brienne encounters a friend turned foe. So I think it's safe to say we're gonna get Lady Stoneheart.
I think it's happening.
Those were the 4 main plots of this episode, but there were 2 scenes that checked in with other characters. One was in Volantis with the Yara and Theon.
In another explicit kind of thematic tie-in to the title of the episode, Theon appears very broken in that brothel in Volantis.
And Yara pretty much pep talks him out of it.
Just beating it out of him.
Yeah, that's the Iron Islands form of therapy. Knock it off.
Nut up. Wait,
There's not much else to say here, really, besides the fact that it was kind of a nice sibling moment, even if it's a really bizarre form of therapy, like you said.
And Yara's a lesbian.
And nobody gives a shit.
Nobody cares.
Yeah, it was nice.
It's a far cry from Loras and Renly, who, while they had some other traits, were mostly defined, I think, by their relationship with each other.
I think it's something that the show has learned from Loras and Renly. I think that they don't need to call attention to the fact that Yara is gay or at least interested in women. It's not nearly as important the fact that she's a good leader and someone who cares about her family and her people.
Theon was getting a little PTSD in there because the last time that he had a naked woman around him was right before Ramsay castrated him.
There's a lot of triggers. Yara brings up dogs. It's a really bad situation for Theon to be in.
It was a lot of stimuli that he hadn't been used to in a really long time. I don't think he's been able to just sit and relax since season 2. Because even up to this point, they've been on the run, he's been on the run. This is probably the first time they've been able to like sit and have a drink.
And the other singular scene was that very shocking one with Arya.
Arya really should have known better.
Yeah, and at first we thought maybe it was just Arya reverting back to her cocky Stark ways, but there's actually a lot of evidence that that wasn't Arya. For instance, Arya has been shown to be left-handed in the series, but here she handles a lot of things with her right hand. She asked the captain for a cabin,
I want a cabin.
even though previously she specifically said she didn't need one.
I wouldn't need a cabin.
And she's just kind of cocky walking around town, even though the last time we saw her, she was paranoid, clutching needle in a dark cave. This might actually end up being Jaqen. He's been shown to have Arya's face before, and he might just be testing the waif in regards to her method in killing Arya.
Don't let her suffer.
As long as Arya gets out of Bravos, I'm fine with everything that's happened with her this season.
I think that she'll get revenge on the waif. She'll probably have some kind of resolution with Jaqen, probably by giving him the waif's face. All he said was that one way or another we get a face. I think that if she kills the waif, that counts. That is me rescinding on the idea that she's just gonna live the rest of her life running from the faceless men. I thought about it a little more, read some comments. Yeah, I think there's a way out of it.
Regardless of what happens now, it was a shocking moment. None of us believe Arya to be dead. None of us believed that they were killing Arya in that moment. But it was shocking nonetheless, and I had a physical reaction like, oh fuck, they just stabbed Arya. So it was successful in that way.
We'll definitely continue her storyline in the next episode because it's called No One, and hopefully there'll be an end to her time in Bravos. But until then, I'm James.
And I'm James.
I'm Chelsea.
And this has been What's on the Box? Order your man to subscribe or there will be violence.
I choose subscribe.
Oh, good.
Should I fail to persuade you to subscribe and you click away, honor compels me to troll your channel.
I love this channel. And if I have to like every video they've ever put out, that's what I'll do.
Pod!